You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
I have a really special show for you today. I want to introduce you to a very special guest. I'll be saying this same exact thing in just a moment as I introduce him, but I wanted to give you a little context. So he's literally referred to now in the health and fitness industry as the bodybuilding yogi. And so when you look at Ben, Mr. Ben Pakulski, as I call him, you will see someone that has literally reached the pinnacle as a world renowned as the pinnacle of essentially bodybuilding, meaning he competed in Mr. Olympia. And now that he's out of that sport, he's essentially talking to people, I would say, in a different way from most bodybuilders, most physique competitors. And he's focusing more on the internal rather than the external. So he's going from someone that has literally built his body up to the greatest degree and now saying that there are reasons why maybe we're looking externally for validation rather than going internally. And if we want to create our best self externally, we need to begin to change what's on the inside. Really enlightening show. Really a lot of fun to talk to. And I love bringing you experts like this. So a lot of times, you're hearing the same kind of circuit of people on different interviews. Nothing wrong with that. What I want to do is at least once a month, begin to bring in a guest expert you may not have heard of before, but has a lot of information that I believe will be very helpful to you. If you believe this show is helpful, I would love to hear your feedback. Just go on Instagram. Just go to my name, Stephen Cabral. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Let Ben know what you thought of the episode. And you can also go over to Cabral Support Group, which is our private Facebook group. Feel free to join. Let us know how you enjoyed the show. So excited for you to tune into today's show. Looking forward to doing more of these in the future as well. All right, take care. Enjoy this interview. Thank you for joining me here today on this special edition of the Cabral Concept, where we have a very special guest, Mr. Ben Pakulski. Welcome to the show.
Stephen, thank you. I feel very honored that you would invite me on to share a little bit about my message and my story.
I'm really excited to have you on today. We only got to really first connect maybe about a month or so, just through some mutual friends, Jay Ferrugia being one of those. And from that time now, I really have heard so many great things about you. Again, I had heard about you and all of your work in the past because I had watched your documentary, which we'll fill people in just a couple minutes about. But your work is really fascinating. And I don't invite a lot of people on the show. And the reason I do that is not because I don't want to speak to more and more guests, but it's because a lot of time what I'm looking for are things that are very unique. Like I want to hear a unique perspective that's really changing and challenging the way that people live their lives. So it's not just about losing weight, not just about getting well. Like you can read that from a book. What I want to invite on are people who are changing people's lives from the inside out, and they're doing it in very different ways. So I'll tell you right now that Ben's story, his advice, his expertise, where he's coming from, I believe is going to make a lot of paradigm shifts in people today. So I'm so excited to have you on the show today. And I would love for you to introduce yourself because, the truth is I don't do a very good job of that. And I would like to say is like, well, what does this person do? So please introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit more about you.
Sure. Thanks, Stephen. So my thing is, for a long time as a child, as a professional bodybuilder, previous professional bodybuilder, I lived this life very focused on what I thought I was going to achieve or what I thought training would allow me to achieve. So a lot of people live this reality of saying, they're trying to accumulate things. They're trying to accumulate money. They're trying to accumulate muscle. They're trying to accumulate some end result for what they think it will make of them to achieve it. And so for many years, I was this gentleman living this life, this harsh external reality of trying to accumulate muscle because I thought it was going to make me more confident. I thought it was going to make me more secure. I thought it was going to make me happier. And the reality is none of it did that. So I look back on my journey and look at all my struggles, having climbed the ranks of professional bodybuilding, all making it all the way to the Mr. Olympia contest, competing there a number of times, making it to basically being, one of the top 7 to 10 bodybuilders in the world, and realizing that it was the most shallow, empty thing that I've ever done. It was extremely lonely. It was extremely self-centered. And as a child or as a kid, I thought it was going to be, the pinnacle or the panacea of life. I was going to get there. I was going to be happy. And none of it's true. So it really sent me down this journey to challenge what we think we know about life. And most people live this life of trying to accumulate things. They try to achieve things. And when you do, oftentimes it's not quite what you think it is. So my journey now is helping people realize their true potential now. And realize that you can be happy now. And the true journey of happiness is not outside of yourself. It's inside. It's internal. And I think that's a really interesting conversation that's being led by a very small demographic of people, realizing that finding your joy that lives inside of you is possible. And you can use anything as the vehicle to find your joy, right? Like I like to exercise. People in my demographic like to exercise, but exercise doesn't have to be a miserable thing. It doesn't have to be something that you don't enjoy. It can be something that brings you joy if you find a way that you love doing it and you use it as a mechanism to connect with your body. So that's really the conversation that I am leading now, is trying to get people more aware, create a higher level of consciousness, and allow people to truthfully live their greatest life in a body that they love.
I think that's great, and a great way to start, because, and I don't want to glaze over this just quickly, because I always find it interesting, because bodybuilding is very polarizing, meaning like you're all for it or you're like completely against it. It's funny. It's like there's no middle ground. And
Right.
someone's like, they look at someone competing in Mr. Olympia, they're like, how is that even possible? That's absolutely an amazing feat of what you can do with the human body. Or you can be like, oh, I can't believe he looks like that. It's like this just crazy, like back and forth. So what I find interesting, though, is that you made it to the top of the game. Like you were Mr. Canada in 2008. Correct me if I'm wrong in any of this. I believe you placed second in the Arnold Classic, and you were a top 10 finisher in Mr. Olympia. Is that true?
Yeah, all of those are true. I'm the type of person who sets a goal for myself, and I have tunnel vision, and that's maybe a blessing and a curse in life. And so I was very focused, and I was very committed to, like, no matter what happens, I'm going to achieve this goal, because I thought that goal would be, everything for me. And as it turns out, as I said in my introduction, a lot of people set these external goals, like I want to make money, or I want to be thin, or I want to have a beautiful house, or I want to have a beautiful family, because what they think that goal is going to bring them. They think the goal is, achieving that goal is going to change your life, when in reality, it's not in achieving the goal. It's the person you become in the process.
Sure. Completely agree with that. What I would love to know from your perspective, you're on the climb, you're making it to the top. And I want to know from your perspective, and this might be able to help others, because there's obviously very few people right now saying like, okay, well, my goal is to get to be a bodybuilder, but everyone has this external thing that they're going for a lot of the time. Like you just said, it's money, it's a relationship, it's a career, it's whatever it is. Like it's a name, it's a title. What was it that you were hoping to achieve for yourself through bodybuilding?
Well, the irony of my life is I had a rough childhood. That's a story I tell myself. I had a hard childhood. I felt a lot of fear. I didn't feel like I was loved. And I felt that building this great armor would bring me respect. It would allow me to get rid of my fear. And maybe it would make people love me. Unconsciously, these are my beliefs. And you get to, you think it's going to bring you self-confidence. You get to the top of this proverbial mountain, and you realize that it's very lonely. You're even more insecure than you've ever been. And it hasn't brought you those things that you thought it would. So that's really how, the transcendence happened for me. And when you get there and you realize that it's, you're at the pinnacle of the world and it's the most empty that it could ever be, you start looking for other answers. You start looking for reasons. And that's really what's ignited my journey. So having left professional bodybuilding, a couple of years back, it's really ignited my journey to find out, like, what is happiness? If all these things that I've worked so hard for so long didn't bring me what I thought they were going to, well, where is happiness and how do I achieve it? And it doesn't even exist. And it brought all these existential questions into my life that has really guided my journey in the last couple of years.
And I find it really interesting, and almost like as you look back, or maybe I look back as well, and to look at it like you were looking for external validation and for that love or whatever it might be that you were missing. And again, like same thing for myself, same thing for many others, but you chose a sport that is so lonely. Like you're in the gym a lot of time by yourself, you're with one other partner, you're competing as a solo human being, which I can imagine would be even more isolating. And did you find a lot of the other competitors had a lot of the same, maybe trauma is not the right word, but
no, it is the right word. I mean, so yeah, that's exactly it. Is I had some unconscious abandonment issues that I've since dealt with, of saying everyone's left me and I'm kind of by myself. And from the time I was 7 years old, I have this little articulation in my mind of I'm going to stick 2 middle fingers to the world. I'm going to do it myself, and that was always my reality all the way through teenage years. I was just a guy who did everything by myself. I always wanted to be by myself. I felt as though anybody else would be holding me back, or I didn't need anybody. No matter what, I can do it. Nothing is outside of the realm of possibility. I'm just going to do whatever it is I want to do. And you're absolutely right, is that every professional, but many professional bodybuilders are living the same reality, because it is such an independent sport. A lot of us have, unconscious traumas, or to use your term, existing from childhood or from youth or whatever it happens to be, that allows us to believe that building this amount of muscle is going to in some way allow us to alleviate that. And obviously, as we know, it doesn't.
It doesn't, but when you look at it, you can understand, like, you are building up this massive armor. Like, you're not putting it on, you're building that in your own body. You're building a warrior from the outside, and hoping that outside maybe comes in internal as well. So that's the thing I always find interesting about bodybuilding. But a lot of people don't know this, but I love bodybuilding. It's funny because I obviously did not take it to where you've taken things, but in college I trained as a bodybuilder, went to the Mr. Olympia where Dorian Yates retired, and Ronnie Coleman actually won his very first Olympia. This is a long time ago. And I loved it, because why I loved it was I saw people who took their body and said, how great or how far can I take this machine? And a lot of people who look at it don't understand the level of dedication is unbelievable. You have to prepare all your meals. You can't miss workouts. One missed workout might lead to this, this, and this. And the dedication to be able to do that, really, it's not even just dedication, it's deprivation from a lot of other things that you'd be able to do in life. But what I find remarkable about that is if you can take that tool and use it in other areas of your life, you could probably go on and accomplish great things.
Absolutely. And you know what? Bodybuilding is an incredible thing. I still love it. And I still think it's a great vehicle if you choose to make it that way. And I think the problem that a lot of people have is the articulation of why they do it is wrong. They're all focused on the end result, and myself included. And we're focused on, well, what's going to happen when I get there? How's it going to make me feel when I get there? When the simple flip of it is looking at it from a day-to-day opportunity to become your greatest self. Is every day can be an opportunity to exude discipline, to improve self-confidence, improve self-worth, just by saying, hey, I'm the type of person who gets things done. I'm the type of person who, when I say it, I'm going to do it. And it's just a different focus, right? It's still the same process. So, it's just being process focused rather than end result focused. And that's a big thing that I teach to all of my current clients and athletes is you can't control the end result. But what you can control is being the greatest version of yourself right now. Did I do everything today that I can do to be my best? Did I do everything today that I said I was going to do? So I know at the end of the day that I have integrity, because at the end of the day, the only person that matters is you. And the person that is watching you every day is you. So it doesn't matter what you put on Instagram. It doesn't matter that you posted something on Instagram that's not true, because at the end of the day, unconsciously whether or not you're the type of person who says something and gets it done. And that's where self-confidence comes from, right? That's where absolute supreme confidence comes from, is knowing that when I say something, I'm going to do it. And then that's the true beauty of really any endeavor, right? Is embracing the process, loving the process, and realizing that you have the type of character to get whatever you say you're going to do done.
So what I'd like to do is, as I'm actually making a note of that right now, is I want to make sure we come back to this, because one of the big reasons that I invited you on as well is that I want to learn more of your methodologies of how to develop the type of character and person in order to then take the actions to achieve all of those things, to do, say, like, did I max out my day? And like, that's where I think these are going to get interesting, and these are going to be huge takeaways for people, because I know what some of these answers are going to be, and I know that they can help anyone in any facet of life. What I want to know, though, is this is not something you see all the time. You essentially almost, you hit the pinnacle of your career. You're top 10 Mr. Olympia. That's, fractions of 1%. You could have been Mr. Olympia. You decided to walk away at the peak.
I did.
Who does that, right? Like, why does that happen? Because then you say, okay, if I become Mr. Olympia, I'm set for life. But you said, no, this isn't for me anymore. Like, why was the decision made, and how did you arrive at that?
Being single-mindedly focused and very self-centered for a really long time, I was completely committed to being Mr. Olympia. And I really believe that nothing would sidetrack me. I really believe that no matter what happened, this was going to be my destiny, and this is what I was going to do. And, I'm the type of person who sets a goal and it's just tunnel vision, right? Nothing's going to set me off. And in 2012, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, and I had a child. And for the first time in my life, something became more important than my goal. And, I still thought, I could probably balance both of these. I'm a pretty resourceful guy. I can make some money. I can be a great dad. And in 2013, I had my second child. And at that point, it was like, you know what, you can't. It was a girl. My first one was a son, and the second was a girl. And I really had a hard time getting my mind around how I could be. I just couldn't be the same person anymore. I couldn't be the type of focused, almost ruthless person that I needed to be in the gym and my training, and so self-centered when I had to go home to this little angel that was sent to me. And that was really what happened, is I lost my purpose. I know prior to that, my purpose was me. It was fulfilling this internal destiny that I believe I had, or this internal objective that I'd set for myself. And after that, now my purpose shifted to being a great leader, being a great dad, being a great role model for these little humans. And when I no longer had a purpose, I still honestly tried to continue it for 2 years after she was born. But I literally would walk into the gym every day and ask myself, why? Why are you doing this? Like, you're taking away time from the most important things in your life. Rather than contributing to the betterment of them, you're taking away from it. And, you go home at the end of the day, having trained twice or even once, and, you have to get down on your knees and crawl with them. And one, I was really heavy. I was, a lot of muscle. And two, I was just tired. So it prevented me from being a great dad. And I realized that by the time they're 5 and 6 years old, like, I want to be able to run and play and dance and all these things that, I just wasn't able to do. So I'm so grateful for my children for having, ultimately woken me up. Like, it was a great awakening to realize that, God, you're literally wasting your life. Even though at the time I didn't think it was wasting my life, it was what I wanted to do. It was certainly something that was a shift for me.
Yeah, it's amazing. Someone with 2 little girls, myself, I can definitely understand there's something to having, a dad having daughters. They soften you a little bit, because I can experience the same intensity and be, quite tense. But, when I see them and they're trying to climb up me and all those different things, it really, changes you. It honestly does. What are your thoughts on this, that maybe the reason you were allowed to step away, and it seems like, and I have gotten to chat with you, and you do seem very at peace and at a good spot in your life. And could it be because what you were looking for in bodybuilding, you then got from now having this great, amazing family?
It could be, at the end of the day, maybe I just wanted, I don't know, unconsciously. That's a great question. I've never asked myself that question. But, I accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish in bodybuilding, short of being Mr. Olympia. And I just made myself at peace, and now shifted my focus to just being the best dad I can be, being a great businessman, and using the platform I've developed for myself as a professional bodybuilder to inspire people and to lead them and to teach them. Because ultimately I've overcome so much adversity in my life, which is why I'm able to be a leader, to lead those conversations, because I struggled, and my struggles developed my character. And, you could be right. Maybe I'm getting the love from my family that I was unconsciously trying to seek from everyone around me. I don't know the answer, but certainly a reasonable assumption.
And maybe you never know. I mean, what matters is that just step by step, where each one of us are putting our lives back together. I struggled for many, many years, and a lot of people, obviously, people listening to this podcast know my particular story, but what I find interesting about yours as well, and I want to let people know this is not going to be, I want to shift in just a moment, but if people want to learn more about, your bodybuilding, because they've never heard about you, they don't even know that much about bodybuilding and the discipline that goes into it. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I thought the documentary, the debut, which really is your documentary, was really, it was like a masterpiece, not on like what is Mr. Olympia all about, what is bodybuilding all about, but you showed a little bit of your family life. You showed what it took. And that was a really great insight because I didn't know you back then when I first watched it, but I knew a mutual friend of ours, Vince Del Monte. I found that really insightful that it wasn't all about you. It was about trying to achieve a goal and become the best version of yourself. And it was kind of coming full circle. Your dad was in it, and it seemed like you were kind of achieving it for more than yourself. So if you give kind of one more thing, one more piece to that of what you got out of the sport that has essentially shaped you to what you have today, I would just love to learn a little bit more about it for my own personal selfish reasons as well.
Sure. Well, I think the thing with bodybuilding and myself was I wasn't as blessed as a lot of the other guys, and I had to work for everything. Every little thing I did, I had to work. So, while everyone else was kind of resting on hard work and genetics, I had to learn, I had to research because hard work and genetics wasn't getting me where I wanted to go. So I needed to learn the optimal way that the body worked and the optimal way the body moved. And, when everyone else was kind of resting and chilling out and playing video games, I was reading textbooks and I was taking courses. And, so I think the discipline and the single-minded focus was blessing and a curse. It was an amazing thing that I got to learn and understand the body to the extent that I do now. And now I say, like, this muscle building process, this, body transformation process is easy. I just understand it, like, because I've had to dissect it in so many different ways, so many different times, because, what works for you one year is not going to necessarily work for you the next year. So every year that I competed, it was this, putting together the pieces of the puzzle. And that really allowed me to learn how to, see through to the end these incredibly complex tasks of optimizing, what the human body looks like in this superhuman form, right? Because it's so unnatural what we do, like, getting super lean while building tremendous amounts of muscle. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, let's train more and more and eat less and less, right? It's kind of it's the opposite of what you would think you need to do. So bodybuilding has taught me a lot. And I think it taught me a lot about myself, taught me a lot about where I don't want to do things, where I don't like to do things, but force myself to do them anyways. But the biggest one is that single-minded focus and discipline that it takes to be great, truly great at anything. And a lot of people don't have the willingness or the ability to see these things through. And thank goodness that I had the resolve to do so.
That's great. Now, you've obviously made the shift. You're no longer in bodybuilding training mode. Of course, you're still in tremendous shape. Tell us, what are some takeaways for my audience? Because, everyone's looking to stay healthy and they're looking to get in great shape. Not, for I think a lot of the people that I speak to, everybody wants to be lean. They want to be in good shape and they want to find like a happy medium for what they can have a good lifestyle, but also stay in great shape. What are some takeaways from that you've learned, because you've learned so much through, really I would say it's technical bodybuilding. And when I say bodybuilding, I mean like literally building the body, not becoming a bodybuilder. But like, give us some takeaways that we can use in everyday life before we transition into what your mentor shared with you that then went on to transform yourself and your practice. So I would love some practical takeaways that we can all use in our own life, myself included.
As I said, prior to us starting the call, Stephen, I think the biggest shift that needs to happen in the fitness industry is the removal of the focus from the external and shifting the focus to the internal. And what that means is most people are exercise focused, right? They're focused on what exercise they're doing. They're focused on sets and reps and all these things that happen outside of their body. And those are useful tools, but only useful if they elicit the proper internal response we're after, right? So, a movement-centric focus compared to a muscle-centric focus. And I think people should start realizing the objective of exercise is not to exercise. The objective of exercise is to challenge our body. It's like reading a book just to read a book rather than reading a book to actually get the benefit of and learn what you get from the book. So most people go in the gym or they go to their aerobics class, whatever they do, and they're just trying to get it done. They're just trying to complete it rather than actually use it as an opportunity to challenge themselves. And that is a different focus. So most people are, I'm just going to go exercise for an hour, 45 minutes to get it done, rather than actually seeing every single movement you make as an opportunity to create this internal biochemical stimulus or biochemical response that changes your body so much more effectively and so much faster. And if we can start shifting people's perspective and thought process in the gym, you can change your body so much faster than you think. When you look at every rep as an opportunity to challenge yourself rather than something you have to get done. Or, it's the idea of like, as a bodybuilder, there's an egocentric focus. Like, I'm focused on what PR am I going to post on Instagram today versus like, hey, who cares how much I lift? I'm actually trying to just challenge my muscles so I get these muscles to adapt. Your muscles adapt and respond to a novel stimulus, right? And I just want to basically challenge my muscle rather than just complete this exercise or repetition. And I think that, to me, is probably the ultimate takeaway that I've had from bodybuilding is like, not being attached to the external and start paying attention to the internal. And there's so many benefits to that the list is endless, including being more aware, being more mindful, being more conscious, paying attention to your body, learning your body, appreciating your body, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, rather than, seeing your body as something separate from yourself. You actually learn to start attaching to or being more associated with this, amazing vessel we've been given.
Absolutely. So you're focusing on as much of anything as the mind-body connection, and not so much for even just with the sets and reps like you were talking about, but actually it's kind of like mindful eating. We're told to slow down, and which is great advice, breathe, put the fork down between bites and chew. And so you might be saying, hey, when you're in the gym and you're doing front squats, think about the biomechanics, think about keeping the chest up, think about sitting back with the hips, like all of that. And then actually feel the muscles decelerate you, right? And then feel them then push back up. Is that what you're saying? Like be more conscious of the movements?
Well, so you bringing in the term biomechanics, I wouldn't even bring that on somebody's radar. Like that's going through my mind. But I'm just trying to make them really simplify what they're thinking about, right? Typically most people are going to hold one conscious thought at a time. And I want that conscious thought to be, well, how do I challenge this muscle? So I've created a very simple framework, which is, around 3 letters, S.S.I. So set up, stabilize, initiate. And it's just like how you set up for this thing is going to determine success and failure. And if you don't do it correctly, everything else after that is basically wasted. And then stabilize your body. So you're basically setting yourself up so it makes it relatively mindless as far as the skill of the exercise. And then I'm thinking about, well, how can I just challenge this muscle, man? So the setup is often the most complex term, but beyond that, or the most complex aspect, but beyond that, it's just like, hey, I want to think about what this muscle is doing, and not even thinking about biomechanics or anything like that. Obviously, maybe that's at some level relevant, but it's just like, hey, what is this muscle meant to do? How do I make it work hard? So if any exercise you're already doing, just 1, slow down. 2, pay attention to what the muscle is doing. Is the muscle lengthened? Is it shortened? What does it feel like? Does it feel like it's actually contracting? Because if it's not, you're kind of wasting your time. Most people are thinking about, I'm trying to complete this exercise. And I'm like, no, you're not trying to complete this exercise. That's not the goal. That's like reading a book just to read a book. I want to read a book to actually get the information from the book. So if I'm going to read this chapter, I want to get the greatest amount of knowledge out of this chapter as I can. So that's the equivalent of, well, if I'm doing this bicep curl, I want to make sure that I get every bit of effort out of this bicep curl, meaning I want the bicep to do 100% of the work. Not, am I using momentum? Am I swinging? Am I using other muscles to assist? I'm trying to actually get the muscle I'm trying to use to do the greatest amount of work. So there's tremendous benefit to that on multiple levels. So if my objective is to move weight, well, who knows where the actual work is being done, right? It can be some arbitrary number of muscles. So the benefit of having one muscle do the greatest amount of work is you're going to have a very precise, almost laser-like stimulus to that muscle. Meaning that muscle is going to get a greater muscular response to take up nutrients, to potentially respond, adapt, and grow, to burn more calories, to have a greater response to the mitochondria. All these things are going to be enhanced exercise benefits just from like slowing down, paying attention, and being able to say, hey, this is the muscle I'm working, if at any point in the exercise someone were to tell you to stop.
Really like that. So S.I.
S.S.I, yeah, set up, stabilize, initiate. So
stabilize, and initiate.
Yeah, so stabilization is, the number one governing factor in muscle contraction, and people just completely gloss over it and miss it, right? If your brain senses an unstable surface, your nervous system literally down-regulates your muscle's ability to contract. So it makes absolutely no sense if you're trying to transform your body to be training on unstable surfaces or to have things other than the muscle you're working actually moving. So once you've set up, you stabilize your body and completely lock it in stone. And the only thing that should be moving and working is the muscle you're actually trying to train. So then you want to make sure you're initiating with the working muscle. So that, like it's the analogy of if I'm trying to push my car from a stop position, it's going to be a lot harder when it's stopped than once it's already moving. And your body knows that, right? Your body's going to always look for things to allow it to cheat, to allow it to throw this weight through space and allow the muscle to do the least amount of work. Keeping in mind that we're overcoming millions of years of evolutionary programming to make things easier. So our body's always looking for ways to move weight rather than, challenge a muscle. And that's a huge paradigm shift to be able to focus on, no, I'm trying to actually challenge a muscle here rather than to complete this exercise.
Got it. So we're actually trying to remove the law of conservation of energy and put it and focus it on one area. So I like that. So it's like that laser focus where, you see people at the gym, they just finish up with their treadmill cardio workout and they grab a pair of 5-pound dumbbells and they just swing them back and forth doing bicep curls, where most likely you're leading to more joint destabilization and probably some type of repetitive motion injury by swinging those around rather than, like you said, lock that arm or elbow, whatever you want to say, in place, create that fulcrum between the wrist and forearm to then begin to isolate what we would say is the bicep. Would that be kind of a better analogy? Feel the bicep burn?
Well, yeah, whatever it is eliminate your body's desire to cheat, right? Your body wants to make things easier, and making things easier isn't your goal. Like you want to challenge your body. You want your body to actually adapt to something, so you got to challenge it. And, you don't need a tremendous amount of work. You realize that when you get better at these things, when you actually get better at doing just a little work, your body responds really, really fast. So people get attached to numbers, right? People say, oh, I have to do an hour workout on the treadmill, or I have to do 12 sets for this body part. And the answer is no, you don't. The response is you don't have to do any of that. You have to do the minimal effective dose to get the maximum response. So exercise physiologists historically attach to, you got to do 3 sets of 8, or you got to do 10 sets of this exercise or 10 sets of this body part to actually get a response. And that's completely ridiculous and arbitrary because the thought process is always, well, who's doing the 10 sets and how are they doing it? Because you doing 10 sets and me doing 10 sets is not the same thing, no matter who you are. So the objective is to get the greatest amount of response out of the least amount of work. That's always the ideal result, right? Like, why would I do it any other way? So my objective is how quickly can I challenge my muscle to make it actually respond? Not how do I do 3 sets of 10? That's just ludicrous.
Oh, I really like that. And that's something I'm wholeheartedly believe in, whether it's food, supplements, anything, is that, if I could take 3 or 4 supplements and get what I need out of that, there's no need for me to add another 3 or 4 and have to process those as well. So, when we're creating personalized wellness plans for people, what we're looking to do is people are like, well, can I still take my curcumin and take my biotin and take all these things? I say, well, probably. But what I'd rather have us do is start with what the essentials are and then make sure that we get the results with this minimal dosage and then add additional only if needed. And essentially you're saying, get a great workout, feel great doing it. And then if you need more later, your body, you'll be able to listen to your body because you'll have a better probably mind-muscle connection, and you'll be able to then tweak it, adding a little bit more until you find the right amount for yourself. Would that be correct?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to do more because it makes you feel good, then do more. But you don't need more, right? You only need the smallest amount you need to get a novel stimulus response. So your body responds to novel stimulus, which means anything you never subjected it to before will cause some type of adaptation. So once I've achieved that minimal response, whatever arbitrary amount that is for you, well, then if you want to go do a run, or if you want to go do CrossFit, whatever, that's great. Like whatever makes you feel good. And this is a big paradigm shift too, right? Is you have to love what you do. You have to find the joy. Like ultimately, what's the point? The point of exercise, yes, we want to get in shape, but everything is dependent on my psychological state. Doing exercise and being in a bad mood is not necessarily always good for you. If you're doing exercise and it's bringing you joy, the physiological and psychological stresses or responses will be completely different. So it's important for people to realize that. And I lived that life for a long time, to the point where when I was a bodybuilder, I used to dread going to the gym, but I knew I had to do it because I was being paid to do it by sponsors and advertisers and whomever, and, even show promoters. I had to do it rather than I got to do it. And just shifting that paradigm, shifting that conversation you're having with yourself makes the biggest difference. It's like, God, I get to do this. It's helping my body. It's helping me respond. It's helping me be a better human, having a better life, a longer life. It's helping my brain work better, my body work better, my heart work better. Wow. Now I can go to the gym and actually enjoy this stuff. And I think a lot of people go and don't enjoy it because they make excuses around things outside of themselves, right? So if I ask 99% of people, or let's say I ask 100 people, hey, what's holding you back from living or having the body of your dreams? And most of them will say, oh, my nutrition, or some will say, oh, my time, I don't have time. Or some people say, I don't have the genetics, and all that's just complete BS. And you know that as well as me, right? It's not any of those things. It's just you taking ownership for your life, right? It's a standard that you hold yourself to. If you improve the standard that you hold yourself to, you can take ownership for that standard. All of a sudden, your body starts to change, your brain starts to change, your finances start to change. These things all change. It's not rocket science. It's just, hey, you just need to change your belief and take ownership for what's happening rather than putting it outside of yourself on all these things that, I can't control it because it's, I was fat as a kid, I have bad genetics. No, you don't. You just haven't taken ownership for yourself and actually taken control of your life.
And so I can see why now more too you're referred to as the bodybuilding yogi, because your advice is really on, you can do it. I can show you how to do it. There's a blueprint of how to do it. What I need to do is help rewire your thinking and conditioning and able to let me help you get to your goals, or anyone, right? Or you to start enjoying exercise again. And I think that is the thing, because you're not going to get results overnight, and it is going to be frustrating in the beginning. But if you reshape your thought process to say, I get to do this. Like, I really like that line, is that, there are so many people who can't. For whatever reason, they are not able to get out there and exercise, maybe even afford a gym membership or have a place in their home where they have the home gym exercise equipment, whatever it might be, is focusing on something sometimes other than, if you're looking for, a lot of times, no matter what it is, like let's say you're exercising for health, focus on what the exercise is doing besides your health, because then you won't get so caught up in it. If your focus is on exercise and transforming your body or losing weight, well, focus on what exercise is doing besides losing the weight, so that if you don't lose the weight right away with exercise, you're still doing it for the other beneficial based reasons. Are those things that you start to weave into your practice as well? Or how do you get people to take their mindset to the next level? Because it's all about consistency.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's finding their purpose. I think when you started getting clear on someone's purpose, it makes it a lot easier to get them motivated on something. And like I said, with me in bodybuilding, when I lost that purpose of being the greatest bodybuilder on the planet, I couldn't get motivated anymore, right? And I think that's what's missing in a lot of people's lives, is they don't have that clear reason as to why they should do it. And if you don't have a clear reason, I don't care how strong the willpower is, you're going to fail. And that's a big thing that I try to weave into my process, is helping people get a little bit of clarity on why they started. Why do they want to do this? Or do they have to do it, or is it something that they want to do? And if we can find somebody's purpose, it's so much easier to get them, ripped out of bed every morning, excited to be there and excited to actually transform their body. And everyone has an underlying purpose. And unfortunately, a lot of people are living other people's purpose. Like they're trying to fit themselves into other people's avatar, right? They see other people on Instagram, they see other people on social media, and they go, I want to be like that person. So therefore, I'm going to go do their workout. And that doesn't make sense. That doesn't work for you. You have to find what excites you, what gives you joy, what gives you happiness. And I don't care if it's kettlebells or CrossFit or whatever, but find your joy and find your bliss, and you have to direct toward that. And if it's just, hey, I want to have a great body. Well, why do you want to have a great body? Because I want to feel good. Okay, well, do you need to have a great body to feel good, or can you just feel good right now? And you have to ask that question. And, most people have this egocentric or vain impression of what a nice body or a healthy body looks like. And the reality is it's all BS, man. Ultimately you want to be healthy. You want to live a long life. You want to feel great. But feeling great for some people means 6% body fat, and feeling great for someone else may mean 20% body fat, depending on what your current standard is. So finding your purpose and learning to love what you are, and learning to love the every day of this amazing life, that's just a shift of your mindset. And then finding, the best way for you to kind of drive toward that purpose, just makes life more enjoyable. And then all of a sudden results start to come, and you don't have to fight against yourself, right? It's not a struggle to get up anymore in the morning. I don't have to go to the gym. Like, no, man, it's all working toward this one single-minded purpose that every one of us has inside of us, even though we have a hard time finding it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And just from a clinical perspective, what I see in my practice is that a lot of people who were never into exercise, never into moving their body, once they started to heal that vehicle, which at the same time, in order to heal the vehicle, most of us need to heal our mind because, our psychology affects our physiology and vice versa. Our physiology affects our psychology. So once we just start getting them walking, we get them moving, in the right direction, we get them healing their body, eating good foods, energy starts to increase. And as energy increases, we want to put that out into the world and we start to then take more action. That action leads to more confidence. Then we take on more projects. Those projects get us to bound out of bed in the morning. And then at the same time, I believe that you're like, well, yeah, now I want to exercise too. It's like most people I know, they exercise, they want to transform their body. Sure, they want to just be in good overall shape. But what they want to do is live a complete life. And movement is such a huge part of that because as you find it, as you get into exercise, you'll notice that circulation increases, lymphatic fluid moves, hormones begin to really balance out, meaning higher estrogen levels can come down a little bit. Testosterone levels can boost a little bit if they're a little bit low. Cortisol levels can begin to stabilize as long as you don't overdo it. And so then you're like, oh, well, I feel even better now. Now I want to do more of that. And then it translates into, oh, I have even more energy. I'm sleeping better at night because I'm actually tired by 9 o'clock at night. Right. So what I find is it's all part of one complete puzzle. And that's why I couldn't agree more that it has to be so much more than wanting to transform your body, but really making exercise and movement a part of a complete human and for what it does beyond the body. Because it does affect the neurotransmitters. You will produce better levels of dopamine and norepinephrine and all of those things that also give you drive. So in your practice, when you're meeting with people, and you have a gym in Tampa, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Are you doing a consultation with them that looks at kind of where they're at right now in both mind and body? Or does that just develop? Because I know you have a team of people obviously with you. How does that work?
Yeah, we always do a consult. And I like to approach it, and I think I talked about this briefly, but just from a single bottleneck perspective. And, a lot of times I can literally look at somebody now and know what their bottleneck is because I really believe that your internal reality shapes your external reality, meaning what's going on inside your mind is going to shape your physical body. And usually by looking at someone, you can kind of see a trend. But oftentimes it's a conversation that needs to be had, just talking a little bit about their lifestyles. Maybe there's a stress that's causing them to not look the way they want to look, or maybe it's something in their life, or maybe it's an environmental toxin, or maybe it's some trauma from youth, or maybe it's some disease that they've had or some ailment that they've encountered that literally is causing this external manifestation of their body to look a certain way. And then we just approach it by removing one thing, right? So I believe that everything, for the most part, is kind of governed by stress. It's governed by the autonomic nervous system. And if we could start to eliminate that stress, so it could be a dietary stress, it could be a psychological stress, it could be an emotional stress or a relationship stress or an environmental stress. And we just take it one at a time. I'm like, hey, you know what? We're going to remove this one thing. And for some people, it's, who knows? It could be nutrition, could be whatever. And we're going to remove one stress, and we're going to start just addressing training just enough so that training doesn't become a stress, right? If the training is adding another stress on top of stress on top of stress, that's a problem. So I want to implement just enough training so that your body can start maybe being a little more receptive to nutrients. By using your muscles, it makes them more receptive to nutrients. Maybe your body's pumping a little more blood, like you say, you get better lymphatic flow. Maybe you're getting a little better neurotransmitter response from improved serotonin, improved dopamine, whatever it may be. We're just trying to shift the needle a little bit, right? And so let people see a positive response first. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of not removing the stressful burden of their life. So their autonomic nervous system is just constantly in a high state of sympathetic arousal, and they're trying to add another stress in the workout. And they don't like doing it to begin with. So one, it's a physiological stress. Two, it's a psychological stress. And you're adding compounding stress on top of the things that already exist in your life. And they end up failing because they're like, oh, it's too hard. Or I couldn't sustain it. I couldn't do it. Rather than going, hey, what's one little stress we can take out of your life right now? And maybe it's as simple as like adding in 5 or 10 minutes of breathing and meditation in the morning that allows their perceived stress to be removed a little bit. And then adding in something in their life that they enjoy doing, like make exercise fun, make them enjoy it, make them feel like they're doing something good for themselves. And all of a sudden, like, oh man, I did this a little bit, and I got this big response. And then you've kind of created a little bit of rapport. And it's okay, well, now we can move this next thing a little bit. Well, if that breathing and meditation worked for you and that little bit of training worked, well, let's just turn it up just a little bit more. And then, oh my goodness, I get this tremendous response. And that's the thing, right? It's just giving people a little bit of self-confidence, a little bit of belief in themselves that they can do it. Because if you believe you have poor genetics or you don't have time or your nutrition is holding you back, well, then that's the truth. And then, if you believe it, then it's the truth. But if we can show you that, hey, these little things can make a big difference if you just change what's going on in your mind. It's so easy to get people to transform their body, man. It's just getting them out of their own way. The first thing that I say when people come into my gym is I want you to forget everything you think you know about exercise. I want you to forget everything you think you know about what it takes to get yourself in shape, and just observe. And let's see what we can do. And people change so quickly that they're blown away. We get world-class transformations in a short amount of time. And people are not only changing their body, but they're changing their life, which is super cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's no longer even funny to me that whenever I talk to the experts, in their field, is that it's just so different than everything you do see on social media and everything you do see from people just without the experience. And it's really not necessarily their fault. They just don't have the experience yet, meaning that you're talking about the autonomic nervous system. Like, you're playing chess where everybody else is playing checkers. Like, they're talking about more stimulus, more sets, more volume, more growth. Right. And sure, that works in the short term before you short circuit the system. Right. You can only have so much input before the system literally shuts down. People are like, well, I did it in my 20s. I'm like, yeah, how much input did you have in your 20s? What were your reserves like? How much were you sleeping? It's just so different. And now you're telling me, okay, you get 6 hours of sleep, your nutrition's on the go. Okay, you're not even feeding the machine and you're asking it to do more. Something's going to break. Right. And so when I hear you say it's okay, no, we can't add one thing in until we take one thing out. That's the way it works. We're going to decrease, we're going to empty that rain barrel, and then we're going to start to build back up. And it's also a great way to get consistency, right? Because you're not blowing someone out every single day. So they're not super sore all the time. They can walk up their stairs, all those specific things. So I love what you're preaching, love what you're doing in the fitness industry. And as we're wrapping up today, I want to know, what is your big mission? And, how do you want to help people and move forward in your career? What is the next couple years? What are you working towards? What are your goals that you're trying to help with?
The thing that keeps coming back is this idea of teaching people that muscle building can be fun and it can be healthy. And I think for a lot of people, they have this negative paradigm around bodybuilding, meaning there's some negative association or there's some negative health implications. And I think for a long time there were. And I want people to realize that muscle building is a huge opportunity to extend your life. It's a huge opportunity to improve your body composition. It's a huge opportunity to help you with prevention of disease. So I think everyone should have a component of muscle stimulus, muscle building stimulus in their life. It doesn't have to be 5 times a week. It can be 1 or 2 times a week. But if you're doing it, let's make the most of every part of it. And then so the other part of the conversation is, well, how do we optimize other aspects of people's lives? And so I'm in the process of writing a book around the 10 foundations of a healthy and muscular physique. And I think people just need to realize that there's so many things that when changed, or, the levers, I call them, when you pull this lever, your body can get better. Your body can feel better. Your mind can feel better. And it's just, little things like it's sleep. It's learning a little about the autonomic nervous system. It's some recovery. It's inflammation. It's environment. There's a whole bunch of things that nutrition, obviously, and supplements and all these things that can be potential opportunities for you to really change your body. And bringing awareness to the big picture, like you speak about, that putting the pieces of the puzzle together, because so many people live this unfortunate reality of not believing they can do it. They just don't think, I don't have the genetics, I don't have the time. But it's so much more simple than you think if you just actually take an intelligent approach and get out of your own way. And obviously have a plan, have a something that's consistent that you can adhere to, and something that is actually going to get you where you want to go. So I'm really kind of narrowing down that conversation around who my demographic is and what I'm delivering, and having shifted my conversation exclusively from muscle building, which I did for a very long time, now to, hey man, I want to help people live an awesome life in a body they love.
Amazing. And I can't wait to read that book and really recommend that to others, because this is a longer conversation that I obviously would love to chat more about, but it's the understanding that it's not even the external matters so much, but what you're doing, the process of going through an exercise routine. Because we were sharing today, that when you get into exercise, okay, that's one thing, but everything has to begin to shift. Like, you're not going to exercise without starting to eat well. You may begin to take good quality nutritional supplements. You'll begin to get a little bit more sleep because you want to be able to perform in the gym as well, or exercising. So I love how it all fits together. And what we're really talking about today is helping people to shape their lives to being the best that they can be, to build the self-confidence, and doing that with exercise as part of that program. So as you said, everyone right now, I would love you to commit, if you're not exercising right now, to twice a week. There's so much research that shows twice a week is exponentially greater than once a week because you're never leaving really more than 3 days off in a row. And even if you never go to 3, get that twice a week. You're going to keep women and men, but you're going to keep your bones strong, your muscles strong, your metabolism strong for life. And for those looking for the anti-aging, you're going to be able to actually change the cell signaling, which we will talk about in the future, to help you live that longest, strongest life. So thank you so much, Ben, for coming on the show today. I know that we could talk for another hour, and we have. So let's do this. How can people find out more about you so when they want to get deeper into your message, they're able to find you online and on social?
Yeah. So, I've got a few things, a few offers on social, a few offers online. YouTube's a good place to find me. I'm usually putting out YouTube videos pretty consistently. And if you look up Muscle Intelligence, you'll find me. If you go to Instagram, it's just my name, Ben Pakulski. I've got benpakulski.com. I've got muscleintelligence.com, which is launching this month. Really, my online presence has just kind of started to begin. Really, I feel like having left bodybuilding, it's almost like a rebirth. Transitioning away from the exclusive muscle building stuff and really starting to redesign the entire online presence. So I feel like it's the beginning of a new journey for me. But those are all places people can find me. It seems like most people are searching people on Instagram these days, which is a good place to find me. I'm on there pretty consistently, but I'm not the biggest social media guy. I kind of don't like being in the public eye, as ironic as that sounds coming from a bodybuilder. But yeah, YouTube, Instagram, benpakulski.com.
Excellent. I'm going to link those up today in the show notes, so I'll put them right there if you want to go to today's show notes page. And the other thing that Ben does as well is, I know that he does, I call them kind of like private retreats or getaways, but he has people come to his gym in Tampa. So if you are, serious about transforming your mind and body, your physique, I know that we can link up something about that as well. And then also, I think you do some live Q&As, and that's always a fun thing. I do a few of those myself where you get to interact with people and they can get a different taste for how this might apply directly to their life. So I'll link all that up on social media. Any last words before we wrap up?
Stephen, I'm grateful for you. Having dived into your book, I really love the conversation you're having, man. It's very similar to what I'm saying. It's like the rain barrel, start removing these little stimulus and all these little stresses, and all of a sudden things start to get better. So please keep doing what you're doing, and I'm very grateful for you having me on the show. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in today with Ben Pakulski. Check out the show notes for more details, and we'll chat with you tomorrow. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.